Most people walk down the canned goods aisle on autopilot. They grab the same brands their parents grabbed. They don't check the price per ounce. They don't flip the can around. I used to be exactly like that. Then last year, I started actually comparing what I was buying, can by can, against the store brand sitting right next to it. What I found kind of annoyed me. Some of these products, you're paying almost double for basically the same thing. Some of them have shrunk so quietly you'd never notice unless you looked at the old receipts. And a few of them are just not worth buying at all anymore, no matter which brand you pick. Nobody really talks about this stuff. It's not exciting. It's not a big scandal. It's just 14 small decisions that quietly cost you money every single month. Stick around, because number 6 on this list is the one that genuinely surprised me the most. I did not expect it, and once you hear the reasoning, you'll probably start checking your own pantry. If you care about getting more for your money without cutting corners on quality, hit subscribe. This is the kind of thing I dig into regularly, and I'd rather you hear it from someone who actually checked, instead of just trusting the label. A quick note before we start. This isn't about telling you canned food is bad, or that you need to throw out your pantry and start over. Canned goods are genuinely one of the smartest tools in a budget-conscious kitchen. They last for years, they don't need refrigeration, and they're a lifesaver on a busy weeknight. This is about the gap between the canned goods that are actually a good deal and the ones that are just riding on a familiar label. Once you see that gap, you can't really unsee it. Let's get into it. Item number 1. Name brand canned vegetables. This one is the classic. Green beans, corn, peas, carrots. The name brand can and the store brand can are sitting inches apart, and half the time they came off the same production line. Canned vegetables are one of the most consolidated categories in the entire grocery store. A small number of packers actually process most of the vegetables that end up in cans, regardless of the label on the outside. The main difference between the name brand and the store brand is often just marketing spend, not the vegetables themselves. Industry reporting on private label grocery trends has pointed out for years that store brands in canned vegetables consistently test at or near parity with national brands in blind taste tests, while running 20 to 40% cheaper per ounce. When I actually did the side-by-side myself, buying both the name brand and the store brand of canned corn from the same store, the ingredient lists were identical. Same order, same additives, same sodium content. The only real difference I could find was the can's paint job and about 60 cents. If you've been buying name brand canned vegetables out of habit, switch one item at a time and taste test it yourself before you commit. Check the ingredient panel side by side, not just the front label. If they match, buy whichever one is cheaper that week and don't feel guilty about it. Start with the vegetables your family eats most often, since that's where the savings will actually show up on your monthly total. Keep a mental note of which store brands pass the test, because once you find 2 or 3 that work, you can stop rechecking every single trip. This isn't about eating worse. It's about noticing when you're paying extra for a logo and nothing else. You don't want to keep funding someone else's marketing budget every week without realizing that's what's happening. Item number 2. Family size. Canned soup. Family size sounds like a deal. More food, better price, right? Not always. A lot of family size or value size cans have quietly gotten smaller over the past few years while the price stayed flat or went up. This is the shrinkflation pattern that's been well documented across the packaged food industry. Manufacturers reduce the container size instead of raising the sticker price, because people notice a price change faster than they notice a slightly lighter can. Consumer advocacy groups and business reporters have flagged canned soup specifically as one of the categories where portion sizes crept down over the last several years, even while the packaging design stayed almost the same. I actually pulled an old soup can lid I'd saved for recycling and compared it to a can of the same product I bought recently. The new one was visibly lighter when I weighed both empty cans, and the net weight printed on the label had dropped too. I hadn't noticed until I put them side by side. The fix here is simple. Stop trusting the size name printed on the can and start checking the ounces. Do the math on price per ounce, not price per can, and compare that number across brands and sizes before you decide anything. It only takes a few seconds, but it's the difference between actually getting a family-size deal and just paying family-size prices for less food. Item number 3. Premium canned. Canned tuna has some of the widest price spreads of anything in the pantry aisle. You can find cans that are triple the price of the cheapest option sitting one shelf away. A big chunk of that price difference comes down to how the fish was caught and processed, not necessarily how it tastes once it's on your sandwich. Chunk light tuna, which is usually skipjack, is consistently the most budget-friendly option and works fine for salads, casseroles, and melts. Premium solid white albacore costs more because of the cut and the catch method, which matters a lot less if you're mixing it with mayo and celery anyway. Seafood industry pricing data has shown tuna prices climbing steadily due to fuel costs, tariffs on imported seafood, and processing expenses, which makes the gap between the cheap and premium tiers even more noticeable at checkout. When I switched from albacore to chunk light for everyday meals and only bought albacore when I specifically wanted it plain, my monthly grocery bill on tuna alone dropped noticeably. I didn't taste a difference in the recipes I actually make most often. Save the premium can for when the fish is the main event, like an actual tuna salad you're serving on its own. For casseroles, melts, and mixed dishes, the cheaper option does the same job. Think about it in terms of how many meals a can actually stretches across in your house. If you're going through several cans a week for lunches and quick dinners, that price gap between chunk light and premium albacore compounds fast over a month, even if it feels small at the register each time. Item number 4. Canned gourmet, chili and stew. This is where marketing works over time. Slap the word gourmet, artisan, or a chef's name on a can of chili, and the price jumps, even though the ingredient list often looks almost identical to the regular version sitting below it. These products lean heavily on packaging design and label language rather than meaningfully different ingredients. When you actually compare the nutrition panel and ingredient order of a premium canned chili against a standard one from the same brand, the differences are usually minor. A bit more meat, slightly different spice blend, sometimes nothing at all beyond the can's artwork. Food industry marketing analysts have pointed out for years that words like gourmet, artisan, and small batch on shelf-stable products carry almost no regulated meaning. Companies can use them freely as long as the product isn't outright false. I bought the gourmet version and the regular version of the same chili brand once just to settle this for myself. My family genuinely couldn't tell them apart in a blind taste test at the dinner table. The gourmet can cost about $1 more. Read the ingredient list before you pay extra for a fancy word on the label. If the ingredients are basically the same, save the extra $1 and put it towards something that actually is different. Item number 5. Single-serve canned goods. Small single-serve cans of soup, ravioli, or fruit look convenient, and they are. But convenience here comes at a real cost per ounce, and it's often steep. When you break down the price by weight, single-serve cans routinely cost far more per ounce than the same product in a standard family-size can. You're essentially paying a packaging premium for portion control that you could get for free with a measuring cup and a regular can. Consumer pricing comparisons across grocery categories consistently show that smaller package sizes carry a higher per-unit cost, a pattern retail analysts sometimes call the small box tax. Canned goods are no exception. I used to buy the small ravioli cans for my kids' lunches because they felt easy. Once I actually calculated it, I was paying almost double per ounce compared to buying the regular can and portioning it myself into a small container. If portion control is the whole reason you're buying single serve, buy the regular size and split it yourself using a reusable container. You'll spend a few extra seconds and save real money over a month of lunches. Item number 6. Canned goods with BPA-lined cans. Here's the one I mentioned at the top, and honestly, it's the one that changed how I shop the most. Some canned food manufacturers still use liners containing BPA, a chemical that's been the subject of ongoing health research and regulatory scrutiny for years. Many major brands have shifted away from it, but not all of them. And the can itself usually doesn't tell you which lining it uses. Health and consumer safety researchers have continued studying BPA exposure from food packaging, and a number of large manufacturers have publicly committed to phasing it out of their can linings in response to consumer pressure and evolving science. I spoke with someone who used to work in food packaging quality control, and they told me the shift away from BPA has been happening company by company, not industry-wide, which means two cans sitting next to each other on the same shelf can still use completely different lining technology. You can check a brand's own website or sustainability page, since most companies that have switched to BPA-free linings advertise it directly, sometimes printed right on the can as BPA-free. If it's not stated anywhere, it's worth looking it up before you commit to that brand long-term, especially for products you buy regularly. This isn't about panic. It's about knowing what's actually going into your pantry so you can make the choice yourself instead of assuming every can is the same. You're not doing anything wrong by using canned food. You're just closing an information gap that most people never even realize exists. Once you know which brands in your own pantry have made the switch, you can shop without thinking about it again for months. It's a one-time check, not a habit you have to repeat every single trip. Item number 7. High-sodium canned soups and broths. This one is less about price and more about what you're actually getting for it, but it belongs on this list because you're paying full price for something that can work against your own goals. Standard canned soups and broths are frequently among the highest sodium items in the entire grocery store, sometimes containing close to half a day's recommended sodium in a single serving. Manufacturers use salt partly for flavor and partly as a preservative, which keeps the shelf-stable product tasting consistent for months. Public health nutrition guidance has flagged canned soups repeatedly as a major, easy-to-overlook source of excess sodium in the average American diet, specifically because people don't think of soup as a salty food the way they think of chips or pretzels. When I started actually reading soup labels instead of just grabbing my usual can, I was shocked at how many had over 800 milligrams of sodium in a single serving, and most cans hold more than one serving. Look for the low sodium or reduced sodium version of your usual brand, which often exists right next to the regular one for roughly the same price. If it's not available, you can rinse canned vegetables and beans underwater before cooking, which measurably cuts down the sodium content. It's a small habit, but it means you're getting the convenience of the can without quietly overloading on salt every time you make dinner. Item number 8. Canned goods from Big Box Bulk Deal. End caps. Those big displays at the end of the aisle screaming, "Save," are designed to grab your attention, and they work. But the bulk deal isn't automatically the best deal, and a lot of shoppers never actually check. Retailers frequently place regular priced or only slightly discounted items on promotional end caps because the placement itself drives sales, independent of whether the underlying price is actually the lowest option in the store. Retail merchandising research has shown for years that end cap and bulk bin placement increases purchase rates significantly, regardless of the real discount size. I got caught by this myself, buying a case of canned beans that looked like a steal on the end cap. When I got home and compared it to the regular shelf price per can, the bulk deal was only saving me about 4 cents a can compared to just grabbing the same beans from their normal spot. Before you load up a cart with a bulk deal, do the quick math using the unit price tag on the shelf, which most stores are required to display. Compare that number to the regular shelf price of the same product, not just to the big percentage sign on the display. Sometimes the bulk deal really is worth it. But you won't know until you check, and most people never do. Item number 9. Novelty or seasonal canned items. Pumpkin pie filling around the holidays, canned cranberry sauce shaped like the can, specialty canned goods tied to a season or event. These items often carry a noticeable markup simply because demand spikes for a short window and supply gets tight. Retail pricing during seasonal demand spikes tends to firm up, especially for products that only get purchased heavily a few weeks out of the year. Because shoppers aren't comparison shopping as carefully during a holiday rush, retailers have less pressure to compete aggressively on price for these specific items. I noticed this pattern clearly with canned pumpkin the last 2 years. Prices crept up in the weeks right before Thanksgiving and then quietly dropped back down once the holiday passed, on the exact same product. If a canned good is something you use seasonally but not urgently, like pie filling for a holiday you can plan ahead for, buy it in the off-season when prices are calmer and demand is lower. Canned goods store well for a long time, so there's rarely a reason to pay the seasonal premium. Planning even a few weeks ahead on items like this can meaningfully cut what you spend on holiday cooking without changing a single recipe. Item number 10. Canned beans, when dry beans are an option. Canned beans are genuinely convenient, and there's nothing wrong with keeping them around. But if beans are a regular part of your meals, the price difference between canned and dry adds up fast. Dry beans typically cost a fraction of the price per serving compared to their canned equivalent, because you're not paying for the water, the can, or the extra processing and packaging that goes into the canned version. The trade-off is time, since dry beans need soaking and a longer cook time. Household budgeting research consistently ranks dried beans and legumes among the cheapest protein sources available at the grocery store, often coming in well below canned versions of the same bean on a per-serving basis. I switched to cooking a big batch of dry beans on the weekend and portioning them into containers for the week. It took some getting used to, but the amount I was saving compared to buying canned beans multiple times a week was hard to ignore once I actually tracked it. Keep a few cans around for genuinely quick weeknight meals when you have no time. But if beans are a weekly staple in your house, cooking a batch of dry beans on a slower day can meaningfully cut that part of your grocery bill. A slow cooker or an instant pot makes this almost effortless, since you can start a batch in the morning and have it ready without babysitting the stove all day. Freeze the extra portions in flat bags, and you basically get your own version of a canned bean, just cheaper and with no can involved at all. Item number 11. Canned goods with excess packaging layers. Some canned products come wrapped in extra plastic sleeves, cardboard trays, or shrink wrap on top of the can itself, especially multi-packs sold as a convenience bundle. That packaging isn't free, and the cost gets built into the price you pay. Packaging costs are a real, measurable line item in how packaged food gets priced, and products with more packaging layers generally carry a higher per unit cost than the same item sold with simpler packaging. This has become more pronounced as packaging material costs have risen industry-wide in recent years. When I compared a shrink-wrapped 6-pack convenience bundle of canned vegetables to just grabbing 6 of the same individual cans off the shelf myself, the bundle was more expensive per can, not less, despite looking like the more efficient option. Check whether the pre-bundled multi-pack is actually cheaper per unit than just grabbing the same number of individual cans yourself. Sometimes it is. A lot of the time, the bundle is priced for convenience, not for savings, and the unit price tag will tell you the truth either way. It takes an extra 10 seconds at the shelf, but it stops you from paying for plastic wrap you're just going to throw away anyway. Item number 12. Canned goods you buy out of habit but rarely use. This one isn't about a specific product. It's about the can sitting in the back of your pantry that you bought just in case and haven't touched in over a year. Food waste researchers have consistently found that a meaningful share of household grocery spending ends up unused, expired, or eventually thrown out. And shelf-stable items like canned goods are easy to lose track of precisely because they don't spoil quickly and don't create urgency to use them. I did a full pantry inventory a few months ago and found 6 cans of things I genuinely could not remember buying or planning to use. That's money that had already been spent and was just sitting there doing nothing. Do a real pantry check every few months. Pull everything out, check dates, and actually plan a meal or two around the cans you already own before buying more of the same category. It sounds basic, but almost nobody actually does it. You're not saving money by having a full pantry. You're saving money by actually using what's already in it. Item number 13. Canned fruit in heavy syrup. Canned fruit in heavy syrup often costs about the same as the version packed in its own juice or in water, but you're getting a lot more added sugar for that same price, with less actual fruit content per serving in some cases. Nutrition labeling comparisons between heavy syrup and juice-packed or water-packed canned fruit routinely show a significant gap in added sugar content, sometimes more than double, for products priced almost identically on the shelf. When I actually compared the sugar content on 2 cans of peaches from the same brand, one in heavy syrup and one in its own juice, the difference was large enough that I switched permanently, and I genuinely couldn't tell a difference in taste once it was in a bowl. Check the syrup type printed on the can before you buy. Juice-packed or water-packed versions usually cost the same or close to it, and you're not sacrificing much in flavor for a meaningfully better nutrition profile. It's one of those swaps where you get a real benefit without giving anything up, which doesn't happen often in the grocery store. Item number 14, store-only, exclusive, canned product lines. A lot of big retailers now sell canned goods under exclusive private labels that are marketed almost like a specialty brand, with premium-looking packaging and a price to match, even though the product is manufactured under the same contract system as their regular store brand. Retail industry analysts have noted the rise of these premium private label or store-exclusive lines as a strategy to capture more margin, since customers associate the fancier packaging with a genuinely different, higher quality product, even when the manufacturing process is largely the same as the standard store brand sitting one shelf below it. I compared one of these elevated store-exclusive canned soups to the same store's basic store brand version of a similar soup. The ingredient lists overlapped heavily, and the elevated version cost almost 50% more for what amounted to a nicer label and a slightly different seasoning blend. Don't assume a store's premium private label is automatically worth the markup just because the packaging looks upscale. Compare the ingredient list and the price per ounce against that same store's basic store brand before deciding it's actually a different product. Sometimes the fancier version really is better. But check first, because the packaging is designed to make that decision for you if you let it. I've started treating any elevated or signature store line the same way I treat a name brand now. I don't assume it's worth more just because it looks like it belongs on a nicer shelf. I check the label, I check the price, and then I decide. Here's the pattern running underneath all 14 of these. It's rarely about the food itself being bad. It's about pricing, packaging, and labeling being designed to guide you toward the more expensive choice without you ever consciously deciding that's what you wanted. None of this means you need to overhaul your entire pantry overnight or panic about what's already in your cupboard. It means the next time you're standing in that aisle, you check the ingredient list, you check the price per ounce, and you ask whether the extra cost is actually buying you something real. Most people will keep grabbing the same can out of habit, the same way they always have, and never notice the gap between what they're paying and what they're actually getting. You don't have to be one of them. A few extra seconds at the shelf, a few label checks over the next couple of trips to the store, and you'll start seeing these patterns everywhere, not just in the canned goods aisle. That's really what this is about. Not cutting corners, not eating worse. Just noticing where the money is actually going and making sure it's going somewhere you actually chose. Grocery stores aren't designed against you personally, but they are designed to make the more expensive choice feel like the easier, more obvious one. Bright packaging, eye-level placement, familiar branding, all of it nudges you toward paying more without ever feeling like a decision. Once you know that's the system you're shopping inside, it's a lot easier to shop on your own terms instead of the store's. I'm not asking you to turn every grocery run into a research project. Pick one or two of these swaps this week. See how they feel. If they work for your family, keep them. If they don't, go back to what you were doing. The point isn't a perfect pantry. The point is making sure every dollar in it was spent on purpose. If this helped you look at your pantry a little differently, hit subscribe, drop a comment with the swap that surprised you the most, and give this a like if you want more of these breakdowns. I'm digging into stuff like this regularly, the kind of thing that's easy to miss unless someone actually sits down and checks. Thanks for sticking with me through all 14. I'll see you in the next one.